Hello and welcome to A&E TV. Today we're joined by Saliha Afridi, who is the Managing Director and founder of LightHouse Arabia. Hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for our Ramadan special.
It's my pleasure.
We're going to start talking about wellness today, and the first question I'm going to ask you is just about how fasting can help with wellness in general and your own mental health.
All parts of your being are included in the benefits of fasting. So let's just take the physical body. During fasting, when you've stopped the organs from doing other things like digesting your food and working the kidneys, everything comes to a halt. That is when the human growth hormone kicks in and it starts to repair itself. The body starts to repair itself. So it's actually very, very good for people. That's why intermittent fasting is such a big thing, is because it actually gives you energy, it gives you, it repairs you, it helps with your immunity. So that would be the physical body. I mean, there's so many benefits, but in order for me to not talk forever, I'm just going to name a few of each. Mental body, if you are not eating, people usually say, oh my God, I would be so tired. I don't think I would be able to focus. That actually isn't the case. That might happen in the first week. So if you are going to fast, I wouldn't say do it for a week. I would say do it for longer, because you detox during that first week. And that's when you struggle the most. But once you're beyond that, you actually have a lot more energy. You have a lot more clarity. You're not as foggy as much. You detox from caffeine and, all gluten and things like that, where things really create some brain fog. Spiritually, there's the spirit of Ramadan, and this is not to be dogmatic about, oh, don't eat, don't drink, and don't, engage anything that gives pleasure to your body, nicotine, etc. So this is not it. There's a reason for that, and I think if you stick to the spirit of why this happened, why we do this, it would be that you actually, when you are starving the body, you weaken the physical body and you weaken the mind enough for you to start engaging with the spirit. And that is when you start to see all the parts of you that you might want to work on. You start to see, oh, I actually have anger issues and then I need to work on those anger issues. And you become a lot more mindful, because every time you have a thought about food, oh, I'm thirsty, you are thinking about connecting with your higher self. This could be your higher self, it could be a higher power, it could be God. Obviously in Ramadan, for people that are observing the Islamic month, it is God. You're supposed to be connecting with God, you're supposed to be connecting with your higher self. So socially, the compassionate part of you gets activated during this time, because you're hungry, you're thirsty, you are, some of you are suffering, or some of us, I should say, are suffering. And you really start to feel like, oh, this is what people are going through around the world, where we are lucky where we can end the day and we have plenty of food. But there are people in the world that don't have that. There are people in Dubai that don't have that. And so really engaging with the community and having that spirit actually carry through, that actually is the spirit of Ramadan.
Definitely. And you're talking a bit about, people feeling stressed and irritable throughout, especially at the beginning with fasting. What's your advice for sort of dealing with those negative emotions that come in when you're depriving yourself of food and drink?
Yes. And so as I mentioned before, that the irritability and the anger is going to come out when you are not taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So symptoms of dehydration also include anger and irritability. Symptoms of detoxing also include irritability and anger. So in the first week, a lot of people are going to find themselves sort of, adjusting to fasting and not drinking and not smoking, etc. But as the days go on, that gets easier. But then another kind of irritability and anger kicks in, which is more about you not taking care of your sleep and you not taking care of your water. Food, we can actually go a long time without food. We have, detox places that have only water for 20 days, 30 days. So a human being can go actually a long time without food. It's the water that really takes a toll on us. And so my advice to people would be that you have to have a really disciplined mindset as you enter into Ramadan. And if if you wish to continue fasting, that you have to take care of your sleep. These long late nights where you're sitting and chatting with your friends, it's nice, but then you only get 2-3 hours of sleep. You're eating heavy food at night, which is not something you're supposed to be doing. So really really protecting the sleep, and other parts will also, and then making sure that you're over drinking water while you can drink, and then making, that will sort of carry you over through the rest of the day. But if you do these parts right, and with a very considered and deliberate approach to fasting, you should be able to manage your anger and irritability just fine.
Perfect. And I was going to ask you about staying motivated. I don't know if that fits into maybe just getting those few hours sleep. If it's like the first time you fasted, or you're just struggling to keep going, like what advice would you give to people then?
So one thing I would say about that if you are curious about fasting, just do it. Don't wait for the motivation, because the motivation will come after, and it will not come right away. I would probably say start with intermittent fasting. Start with a 12-hour fast or a 16-hour fast. Do a wet fast, which is basically you can drink water but you don't eat food, and then graduate yourself to where you are doing a full day's fast. Build yourself up slowly so you can start to detox from certain things. And because really it's the struggle with most people is only going to last 1 week. And if you can really push through that, you'll find that your body is a very sophisticated, machine. It manages itself. It adjusts very, very quickly.
How about more in general? Obviously, if you're fasting, how do you use it as a time to sort of reflect on your mental health in general, and maybe things that you need to work on once fasting's over?
So I think if you use the month, like I said, in the way it's supposed to be, you are really spending time in some sort of solitude as well. Yes, it's a time of family and community and God and, prayer, but also to be alone with yourself and to really think about the things you would like to change in your behavior, really thinking about things that you want to be better. So what would be the best self of me? What would be the best version of me? What does that look like? And what do I need to change in order to get there? And then using this 30-day challenge to do more of that, because you are what you do. You are what you repeatedly do, is what Aristotle said. And so if you want to be generous, do generosity. If you want to be a kind person, do kindness, and then use this month to actually engage with that. And if there are times where there are people that are probably going to be like, well, I'm anxious or I'm depressed. Ramadan is not supposed to be for people who cannot do it. It's not supposed to be a time of suffering. It is supposed to be a time of struggle. So we really want you to be very, very, I want you to consider, is this the right thing for me? Because if you need to take medication, if you're sick, if you're not well, I would not recommend this. But if you are struggling mentally, then I would use this as a 30-day challenge to improve on the things that are getting in the way of you and the best version of you.
Maybe take action afterwards if you need any support.
Yes.
To any struggles.
I think a lot of times when people just sit in silence and they sit still, they actually realize that they're not doing well, that they've kept themselves busy, that they're distracting themselves, that they're numbing themselves through work or going out or being with friends. And when they actually sit still and they just be, they realize, oh my God, I'm really uncomfortable and I'm not happy and I feel very anxious and I feel very agitated. This would be the time to reach out and get support professionally.
Yeah. So for yourself personally, what are the sort of biggest positive outcomes, or the way that lifestyle of fasting and going through Ramadan has helped and maybe even changed you as a person?
I've been fasting since I was 7 years old, and this was something that, all the grown-ups were doing it, so I was going to do it too. So it started off that way, where I'm going to prove to you that I'm capable and I'm not just a little kid. And it becomes mandatory at puberty for people. So kids don't have to do it. They only have to start, and it's mandatory after puberty. And so when it became mandatory, I think my eating habits and my way of life was already in that way, because I was an athlete. And you have to eat healthy, you have to take care of your sleep, you have to make sure that you are getting the right kinds of food. So my mindset was already that of what the spirit of Ramadan is, which is supposed to be balanced. And then I'm also quite a reflective person. I really focus a lot more on the inner world. And so the things that Ramadan asks of us, I think I do naturally. So it is easy for me. As the years went on, and now I have children, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are fasting. And, we all have to wake up at 3:40 or whatever to eat. For me, now it's shifted a little bit, because now I'm focused on what they are learning from it and what I should teach them about it. And generally speaking, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. So there are days, and most days, I will only eat 1 meal a day anyways. The only difference between Ramadan and not and any other day is the caffeine that I have to drink at 4 a.m. And so I start waking up around, I wake up at 3:40, and then I go the whole day until the evening. And so, which is something, by the way, for the first time this year, has been very, very powerful for me, because I realized, wow, those 2 hours, 4 and 5, there's the 5 a.m. club. Well, I'm in the 4 a.m. club, and I feel like I get a world of creativity that I enter into, and so much time that I can actually just focus. And then I go work out at 6 o'clock. I work out at 7 o'clock. And so my day just starts, and I have a lot of energy, and it actually feels like any other day. The only thing I worry about is my dehydration. So I have to be very, very focused about that. But it's intermittent fasting. I'm a big fan of it. And I really would recommend that to people. Do your research on intermittent fasting. There are apps that actually teach you how to do some of that now, and then move into the dry fast. But yeah, it's something I live by and I love. I would like to add one thing about fasting, though, because this is something, again, that I take very seriously, is that you are what you eat, right? And so if you are eating processed foods, and if you are eating things that have a shelf life of 20 years, you're not nurturing your body, you're not loving your body, you're not feeding your body, you're hurting your body. And people don't actually realize that 90% of our serotonin, 90% of our serotonin, which is the happy chemical in our brain, which is what the medication actually releases, the serotonin, is created in our gut. And so if you have a happy gut, you have a happy mind. And it cannot be any other way. And it really does take a toll on people when they're not eating healthy. And so if you are fasting in the month of Ramadan, I would say that really make sure that you're not eating these fried foods and these heavy foods. Okay, every now and then it's fine, but not every day, because it really is very, very detrimental to the body. And then generally speaking, throughout the year, focus on eating foods that are of the earth.
Yeah. And that will help the mind as well as the body.
And it helps the mind, it helps the body, it helps everything, actually.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure, it was my pleasure.
And thank you for watching A&E TV. We'll see you next time.